Today I'm going to share with you the one biggest lesson that changed my life quickly after narcissistic abuse, and it just unleashed huge amounts of healing, and I want to share that with you today. Hi, welcome to my brand new channel. The one thing that I learned is that I absolutely needed to transform beyond the abuse experience, and I'm going to share that with you in this video. And what I am going to tell you, it will speed up your recovery from narcissistic abuse. I'm going to give you the exact steps that I took that helped to release me from the grip of narcissism forever. And I managed to do it in 6 months, and maybe following the advice from this video, you could collapse that timeline even further. It's completely possible. So the content in this video is not going to be what you think. And it may even shock you, and it's very counterintuitive. And it might be like nothing else you've ever heard in the narcissistic abuse space online. So when I discovered this one thing, a whole load of awareness and healing came to me. And it will come across as being quite prescriptive. And I just want you to understand that I'm just noting down all the things that I did. I'm telling you the detail of the exact method that I used on myself to get free. So I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but if you want to get free from this experience, then maybe there's something in this video that you can use to help you do the same. So the information is here. If you want to act on it, it's entirely up to you. So I'm Sarah, and I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I help people get over narcissistic abuse quick, just like I did, and start to build fantastic relationships. So I'm sharing the experience of my recovery because I think it will help to inspire others who found themselves in a similar situation. And if you want to know more about my situation, there are other videos. I'll connect them into a playlist, and maybe you could check them out there. So during my recovery from narcissistic abuse, a few people were telling me at the time, because I was in a special sort of healing space, and I had access to sort of knowledgeable support. I was told that the narcissist is like a messenger. The narcissist is a teacher. So maybe you have heard this and wondering, why is that? How is that? And I was a little bit puzzled at the time, but after everything I've been through and going through the healing journey, I absolutely know for a fact that it's true. So I'm going to show with you how we can learn the lesson of abuse. And if you found yourself in a similar situation, my heart does go out to you. And there's nobody else can know how bad it feels other than maybe other victims of narcissistic abuse. And it's a pain like no other. And there's a reason for that, and that is because the pain is trying to get your attention. It's life trying to show you where to heal. So a caveat is really just make sure when you're in the online space that you are be selective about the resources that you are paying attention to. Get advice from people who have already successfully healed from narcissistic abuse and are now attracting great relationships, because you need to have that kind of wisdom ahead of you to help show you where to go with your healing path. So don't leave that to chance. Don't randomly click on things online, although that can be a useful way of finding things, but be very discerning, and actively seek out people who have had success about healing from narcissistic abuse. So in this video I'm going to talk about the how I got free from narcissism, and how I learned to create a happier life as a result. So the massive lesson I learned was that there was a turning point in my fast recovery, and I'm going to show you the steps that I took as well, that you can maybe also follow. So be ready to take some notes. So there's a little bit of background that I want to add into this video, although you probably know this already, just to make sure everybody is aware. There's nothing new or surprising about how sociopaths, psychopaths and narcissists in general go about living their lives. So they're kind of like scavengers going around trying to pick up morsels of narcissistic supply, and as they go through life, and by any means necessary. And if you've been in a long-term relationship with a narcissist, you were their main source of supply. So they could keep going back to you over and over and over again to get their feed of significance. And the reason is because in themselves they feel devoid of anything. They feel devoid of love, they feel empty, and most of all they really detest themselves deep down. And this is why they seek out supply in whatever means they can get it. I'll make another video about narcissistic supply because it's a really important point to bear in mind in your recovery. So it's almost like they're working from the same handbook, and it's like they went to the same college. And if your abuse experience has taught you anything, it's taught you what narcissists do, and you've actually completed your basic training. Especially if you've lived decades with one, you know all about this. So now you kind of completed your basic training. Now you're going to go into sort of some postgraduate mode, because we want to take you out like I wanted to do. I wanted to be free of narcissism. I didn't want it happening to me ever again, and I still wanted a happy life. So before we get started into the main part of the video, there's some really important caveats that I want you to take notice of. It's really vital preparation, and if you can tick these 3 boxes, then go ahead with this healing, but you need to make sure these things are in place first. So the first thing is that you must be actively healing your triggers every day. And that means that at some level you have some kind of emotional toolkit. So you have something like a healing meditation, or you are doing freedom technique tapping, something that's helping you process your trauma at a core level. And if you haven't got an emotional toolkit like this, then I do advise you strongly to go and find one. Go and find something that works on processing trauma specifically, something you can do for yourself. I mentioned freedom technique is a really good one. There are other things available, so just go and do a little bit of research and find something that works for you. The other thing as well is you must be able to, don't do this by chance. Be very deliberate about how you tackle the content that I'm going to share with you, the method that I'm going to share with you. So devote a whole day or even a whole weekend to doing this work, because you need to give yourself some time to do some more deep healing, because it's going to bring up a lot of triggers. So you need to be able to set aside time to nurture yourself during this pivotal time of your transformation. The other thing is that it almost goes without saying, but I'm going to mention it. You really need to be in no contact from the abuser. You don't want to be having any contact with them at all. I will be producing a video content about no contact, but it's an essential part of your healing, and it must be in place before you tackle anything that's going on on this process that I'm going to teach you now. The other thing as well is that another thing that's in my emotional toolkit is meditation and mindfulness, because that will help to stop you reacting emotionally to every little thing that that the narcissist does. And you've been living for decades with reactivity, and you've been living with triggers and post-traumatic stress triggers, complex post-traumatic stress as well. So meditation and mindfulness practices are absolutely essential to keep your reactivity as low as possible, because you've had a lifetime of it. You need to break the cycle, and that needs to be in place as well. Okay, so let's get into the main body of the video. Now, we're going to look at everything in a very dispassionate way, in a very surgical way, and as non-reactive as you can possibly be, and almost like we're looking at it as that we're not in these experiences, but we're looking at it as an observer. And it's time now to take a totally radical approach to your healing and your abuse experience. And it is tough. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This is tough to do, but it's the one thing you must do to get free in a short space of time. So when I realised that I was very reactive, I'm very emotional and very triggered, I realised that this is also not a good state of mind to be taking any action from. It's not a good place to be taking action from. And also, you don't want to be creating any more negative beliefs about yourself, because we're going to be reframing how we think about ourselves as well as a result of this work. So in a relatively emotionally stable place, I was able to take action on the data. And I'm going to talk about the data in a little while. And it's a detailed breakdown of how I used this data to get some forward motion in my recovery. And I kind of did this for myself. So I'm not, it might be that if you have a specialist therapist who's experienced with trauma processing and trauma release, this is the kind of work you could do with them. They may have something similar, but this is something that I kind of created for myself, and it's just an incredible release from the suffering. But you have to go into and look at the data, look at the things that happened to you, to unlock the keys to your healing. So where I got my insight for this was I was kind of reflecting on how the sociopath lived his life, and that everything he did, and you will have something similar in your history, everything he did was done with a specific intention. Now, we know about narcissists, they intentionally do these horrible, sadistic, cruel things to get a rise out of you, to get an emotional reaction from you, and to keep you hooked into the relationship. And it's all done intentionally. It doesn't happen by accident. And this is crucial to understand what's happening. So I want you to think about these things, as I mentioned before, as you might be an observer, rather than actually in the situation, that you are observing what has happened to you. And we know that they create circumstances to gain narcissistic supply, and they do it intentionally. And we're going to take a lesson from the narcissist, because up until now we've been responding to the things that the narcissist has done or said, and we've kind of been unanchored, and we've lacked intention. Whereas the narcissist has every intention of doing these horrible things. It's what makes them sadistic, cruel, they have no empathy, and there's a total absence of love. That's why there's no level to which they won't sink to gain narcissistic supply. But us, on the other hand, and I don't want any of this to be misunderstood, because we were victims. I'm showing you in this video how you can take your power back from this, but we need to learn a lesson from the actual narcissist. They did all these things with intention, but we were acting out of reactivity, and we were responding to somebody else. And we somehow have to start changing that. What we can do is we can start acting intentionally ourselves. Obviously not from the same core values that the narcissist had, because we are not like that. So I just want to make that clear. So although I'm going to advocate thinking about acting with intention, it's not the same as acting like the narcissist, okay? Because they're definitely exploitative, they're destructive of relationships and people, and we're nothing like that, okay? So you care too much, I care too much. Maybe like me, you're really highly empathic and you have a capacity to love. So that's the key difference between you and the narcissist. So I just want to make that absolutely clear. But it's the intentionality that we're going to focus on. So the whole objective of this exercise is that you're going to discover your core values and beliefs so that you can set intentions to how you want to live your life, so that you can live a happier life. Does that make sense? I mean, in effect, that's the whole point of this exercise. So I'm going to give you some more information about how you go about doing this, but that's basically what we're doing. So you're going to find out what your core values are, you're going to understand what your beliefs are about yourself, and you are going to set intentions for how you want to live an authentic life. And actually, as a result of this work, you'll also know exactly what you need to heal on as well. So let's get on. Let's get on with it. And you're now going to be, taking your power back. So instead of reacting to what narcissists do and feeling emotionally wrecked all the time, and the accumulation of that over decades, I think we've had enough of that. So this is the time now to just stop that and start creating an intentional life. But we're going to go into the detail now. To live authentically, that means we are going to live to our true self, not our traumatized self. Our traumatized self created more trauma. She was reactive, she was emotionally triggered, she was anxious, she was depressed, all of those things that go with the effects of narcissistic abuse. They're not really our true self. They're just a reaction to trauma. So what we're looking for is we're looking for our true self. And what's the opposite of being authentic? It's being fake. So being fake is actually what narcissism is all about. They put on a front, don't they? We know about this. We know about the mask. And what's behind the mask is what they're really like, that's showing their true intentions, and the mask is a pretense. And in a way, and I'm not suggesting that we are anything like the narcissist, but we've been living a life of trauma, and our true self that identifies with love and happiness and good relationships has been masked for a long time. And we're going to release that mask. We're going to see what's underneath the trauma, and we're going to work to releasing those true core values of who we really, really are. So we're going to be thinking in terms of opposites, and we want to be authentic. So we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to be very surgical about what we're going to do. Maybe this is something that we've never done. I know for me it was something I'd never done before, because my really trauma and abuse was something, it was all I ever knew, because I came from, my family of origin was a narcissistic family system. And I'd never really been able to grow emotionally because there was a narcissist in the family with other issues as well. So I was a very traumatised child, and maybe this resonates with you. And this is partly why we also attracted narcissistic relationships, because it's something that was familiar for us. But none of the abuse that you have experienced is your fault, because we don't know what we don't know. And if, like me, you had a difficult childhood, really trauma is the only thing that you know, and responding to narcissists, that's all you know. That's probably a basis for another video, so maybe stay tuned on the channel and I'll release some more content about that. So I used to say that my recovery was like getting my life back, but actually I think totally differently about that now, because of the trauma, because of decades and decades of reacting emotionally to a negative person. I never really knew my true self. Not really. So in a way, my life hadn't really been my own since childhood, but certainly in the marriage. My life literally wasn't my own. It was being controlled by another person. So I've been subject to a lot of people pleasing and a lot of getting validation from other people, and also from people who had really dubious motives, and dodgy core values or no core values. So I'm talking about the narcissist here. So none of this is any of our fault, right? So we're gonna just drop that now. Any guilt that we should have done something different, just it's not relevant, because these people knew what they were doing and we didn't know any better. But in this exercise, you're going to know better and you're going to understand a lot of what was going on for you. So when I created this exercise for myself, I discovered actually how to celebrate my own true identity, and to know my own core values. And it was like a revelation. It's like, oh, this is really who I am. Okay, this is the authentic me. And it was very releasing. It was very liberating. But we have to get tough to go there to find the gold. So it's like finding the gold, finding the golden nuggets of who you really are. But we've got to go through some difficult stuff to get there. So this exercise is vital for beginning to create an incredible, authentic life after abuse, and your experience is not the be-all and end-all of your existence. So maybe, I'm glad you found this video, because, hopefully I'm some kind of living proof that there is a good life after abuse. I've got attractive, beautiful relationships. I'm in a lovely, stable, loving, healthy relationship. The relationships, my children have just sort of blossomed. Career and work and everything is just all working out because I'm a lot happier. And this is what we need to do. We need to learn how to be happy. And how we learn to be happy is living according to our true values. Now, the other thing as well is that narcissists don't go anywhere near authentic people. They run a mile from them, because authentic people who are living true to their values and who are living intentionally can spot narcissists a mile away. And narcissists realise, because we were scoped by a narcissist because of our people-pleasing instincts and our needing validation from other people. They could see our blind spots, and that's why we were a match for narcissism. Okay, right, so you're going to definitely need your notebook if you haven't got one by now. So this is what you must do, having taken note of everything I've said prior to this point and prepared yourself emotionally and physically. So keep a notebook handy for this, and I want you to make 2 columns down the page. And this is tough because you're going to be relying on memories of abuse. But I want you to act as an observer if you possibly can. Okay? And you're going to be fine. You know you're going to be fine because you've set some time aside. You've got your healing toolkit. You've got your meditation. You've planned hopefully some really nice things to nurture yourself as a result of this exercise. And it might just take half an hour. It might be that you come back to it every now and again, but you've prepared yourself. So I'm just going to go through how this is done. Okay, so I want you to think about the real standout memories of the abuse. And I want you to write some basic details in column 1. And this is where you're going to have to dig in deep. And you're going to have to be brave, because you've got to do this. Where it really, really hurts, you've got to go in and do that. And this is why you can't do it if you haven't been doing a lot of healing already. Okay. So I'm just going to show you on my with some little sticky notes. So you can do it in a notebook. You can do it on post-it notes as well. I hope you can see it. Okay. So here, maybe there's a particular memory, and you can write down the details. But here I've just put, I was gaslit to believe that, blah, blah, blah. Because we know narcissists gaslight, and you will have experienced that. So I was gaslit to believe that. Okay. Now we're just gonna post that there. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm just gonna go to another one. Here's another one. Here's another memory, a possible memory. Okay. So, I was betrayed when. Okay. And you will have experienced that as well. And it's unique to you. So however that betrayal showed up is unique to you. However this gaslighting showed up is unique to you. So it's important to put some of the detail in. Okay. Here's another one. So I'll try and lift this up a little bit more. So when you said blah blah blah, whatever that might be, again, this is the uniqueness of this for your situation. I was incredibly hurt, distraught, feel into those feels of when that happened. Okay, so do that for as long as you we're gonna go to the relief in a minute. So I know these are hard, and when you're doing this for yourself, you might have a few more. So do set a time limit on this. I'm thinking now maybe about half an hour, so that you've got time to nurture yourself, time to look after yourself, and attend to your own well-being with whatever things you've got. So whatever tools you've got. Okay, so we're going to do the opposite now. So we're talking in terms of opposites before. So we're going to do the opposite of these things. We're going to look so we're going to look at the gaslighting. Okay, and I want you just to have a little think. As an observer, this person, you can depersonalize it. This person said this, this and this, and that's not how I understood the situation, but I felt really confused. And it left me feeling like I was going crazy. Something like that. So you can write that on a post-it note as well, or just on a notepad in a column. And just thinking about that moment of gaslighting, I paid too much attention. So as an observer, I paid too much attention to what you were telling me. And it made me feel like I was going crazy because the events that I understood and that I saw don't really relate to anything that you said. And I stopped trusting myself. I didn't trust my own eyes. I didn't trust my own memory. And I trusted you more than I trusted me. Is this making any sense? So it's about self-trust. So whatever your reaction as an observer of this event is, this is your healing. This is also one of your core values, that I have to start trusting in myself, believing in myself, believing what I see, and understanding my own feelings, and trusting that when I feel confused, that I am confused, that I know what I saw and I know what I know, and I trust my own feelings about this. And this is a cure for gaslighting. Okay, so once you get into this mindset of being an observer and not being in the actual abuse, because this is why this is so important to prepare for this, because you need to be surgical about what actually happened here. What was going on? Well, he said this and he said that, and he was just trying to confuse me, and I felt confused and upset, and I felt like I was going crazy. But it was all. But if if I trusted myself a lot more, that wouldn't have happened. And we're kind of doing our own analysis here. So you're actually becoming your own therapist. Okay. So here's another one. So because there will have been betrayal, and you can write the more specific details of that there. So I was betrayed when Okay, and then the opposite might, after you've given it some thought, and again we're in observer mode, and we're kind of like being a little bit surgical, as if this is happening to somebody else, not us. When that happened, I believed you were trustworthy, but I know you were not trustworthy. You know, I forgive myself for trusting you, but I should never have trusted you. I gave you too much trust, and you hadn't earned it. Does that make sense? Okay, because what do we know about narcissists? They'll do whatever it takes to get narcissistic supply, and if it means going off and cheating with somebody or something else like that, some other kind of betrayal, they'll do it. They don't even think twice about it. It's in their DNA to go and do this thing, but for some reason we felt we could trust them. Now, looking back over the relationship, you will have seen examples that this person was not to be trusted, and you might have glossed over it. So this should give you pause to just consider, again, as an observer, not actually in the trauma, but as an observer, where did this person ever show you that they were untrustworthy? Now they do give tells on themselves, the narcissists, but we may not have spotted it because we're so traumatized, so triggered, so confused, so reactive. We will have missed quite a lot of obvious tells that they were untrustworthy, and that will help you to get a sort of rational. What we're going for is going for a rational, surgical view of these events and how they affected us, and how we're going to change them now. So the lesson and the core value is here is that I am a person who does trust people. That's a good thing, actually. You trust people. You know, that's your hoping for the best with people. But the lesson is, can I trust everybody all the time? And does someone have to show me that they are trustworthy, or do I just give them it causes you to explore your own relationship with trust, and it's pretty much linked to this as well. It's about trusting yourself. So it kind of will open up a little bit of a dialogue about how your relationship with how you trust people, because we have to trust people. We can't go through life without trusting at some level, and it's on a scale of trust. But what we'd done was we'd gone right at, we 100% trusted this person, and they betrayed us, and there were probably signs that we missed that were telling us that we shouldn't trust them, but we missed them. But then the conversation that you might have with yourself is, well, I do need to trust people. We do need to trust people sometimes. We can't live life without trust. That will turn us into a hardened person. We won't be able to connect with other human beings as much. The fact that this person betrayed us it's on that person. They were just not trustworthy, but we didn't realise. So there are some other videos on my channel about trusting, about trust issues. And it's the one thing you have to develop. You have to gain a sense of self-trust. And this is what this exercise helps with. Okay, so the other thing might be, when you said this, whatever it was, and again, not being in the trauma, just observing it, when you said blah, 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 it made me feel the absolute pits. And I couldn't believe you said it, and blah, blah, blah. So you've got your own version of this. But the lesson about what anybody says about anybody else is this, right? We can just shortcut a little bit of healing here. These are a little bit more specific. It's based on trust. But this one, anybody that says anything nasty to you is projecting, right? They're dumping all their disown parts onto you. And it's the same for everybody who says has ever said anything nasty about anybody ever. The truth is, what people say about me is none of my business, because it's what I believe about me that counts, not what you believe about me. So you can say this as much as you like, but this is all you reflecting what you think about you. And there's a lot of healing in this as well. Okay, so I hope that wasn't too bad. And it will, you can keep I literally use post-it notes like this, and I kept them on a corkboard. I kept them out of the way because I've got my children coming into the house every other week, so it was just for my own reference. So you can keep this list handy, and you can sort of work through it with your healing toolkit. You can look at these, and these are your vulnerabilities. And it opens up your mind to go beyond the abuse experience. You can say, well, this happened to me, but it's not going to happen to me anymore because of this. I understand this now. I have this awareness. And it's like inoculating yourself against abuse. So we didn't know, when these things happened to us, we didn't know any better. And this is why we mustn't ever blame victims, and we mustn't blame ourselves either, because we're looking at these events as an overview with greater awareness and greater wisdom, and we're building ourselves up from ground zero. This is how we do it, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there. So this is how we do it, building our values and our core beliefs that we might not really have understood before. But now we're understanding. So we're understanding how trust works for us. Some people will say, I've got trust issues, I'll never trust anybody ever again. You can't live like that. You just can't. You can't move on in life without, you do have to have some level of trust. So, as I say, there's another video about that. Okay, so it's an emotionally tough exercise because you've got to go to where the things hurt. You've got to go to the really bad things that happened to get that breakthrough. It's where the light gets in. It's the cracks where the light gets in. You may have heard that. And this is that exercise that does that. So it's emotionally tough, but you've got to do that. You've got to do that. You've got to do that work. You've got to understand what your values are. You've got to know what your vulnerabilities are. So a vulnerability for me, so the gaslighting thing and the trusting thing, that's something I had to do a lot of work on. It was my vulnerability, right? But I understand it now. I have an awareness of it now. And it's caused me to develop a lot more wisdom around the subject of trust, instead of making a snap reactive decision about, oh, I'm never going to trust anybody ever again. That's a trauma response. We've been reacting in trauma for too long. We need to take a rational view, an observer's view of what's been happening for us. And yes, we do have to feel the feels. So that's why your emotional toolkit's so important. So when you have memories of the betrayal and the gut feelings and the emotional triggers that you've got going on, that's why you must go immediately to your emotional toolkit and work on those triggers. So I will be producing more videos about how we do that kind of healing, so that you can build up an awareness, build up a wisdom of what's happened for you. And this, hopefully, this will help you turn I used to think of it as like stepping stones. So every abuse is like a stepping stone to gaining more awareness and releasing those hooks of narcissism. So it made me more determined to be an observer of my old self and what happened to her, to get the work done, because this is the work. This is how you get free from narcissism forever. So when we do this work and we're focused on how we felt about something, we're taking this overview and we're looking at things rationally, what we're doing in that process is we were a victim. Absolutely, we were a victim. We were a victim when that happened. We're a victim when that happened. But now we're taking our power back. So you might have heard that phrase as well. It's like, what do they mean taking the power back? You know, it's like, this is it. You're becoming aware of what was happening for you. You know what your vulnerabilities are. You've got a healing toolkit so you can process the trauma within. And it's giving you masses of awareness and understanding. And it's a way of moving on from the abuse experience, because because we need to do that, don't we? I mean, the last thing do you know what? I am absolutely bored to tears of narcissism. And I kind of get a bit annoyed when everybody talks about, oh, narcissists do this, oh, narcissists do that. Yes, they do. And I was a victim of all of that. But I don't want to keep going back talking about smear campaigns over and over again. I will only ever talk about a smear campaign when I'm doing this exercise. Right? Only when I've got some form of processing the emotional hits of the trauma hits of that memory, then I'll go in and look at this. But I'm not going to go and check out all about smear campaigns for hours on end online, because that would traumatise me even more. And I'm fed up of being a victim. Maybe you are too. So you can say, yeah, I used to be a victim, but I'm not anymore. I understand a lot more about what happened. And it's nothing to do with the things that narcissists do. They just do it. That's who they are. There's nothing new about narcissism. And there's no bar low enough that they won't sink to get their supply. But the thing is, you're trying to extricate yourself from narcissism. You've had your basic training. You've probably experienced all of those things that they do. But we need to move beyond those things. We need to break the chain of pain. And this is how you do it with an exercise like this. So I'm hoping that this is going to help you. I tried to condense it into a shorter time scale as I could, but it's actually it's quite a complex process in some ways. It's very profound in some ways, and yet in some ways it's very simple. So hopefully, as a result of doing this exercise, you'll know who you are for real. You'll know what your values are. You know what your vulnerabilities are. And you know, life will definitely start changing for you. And it's about living intentionally as well. So let's just close this gap, because there was a little bit of a mention of intention. Okay, so what I mean by living intentionally is, so let's just take something really, really straightforward. So maybe you make a new friend and you get on and everything, but you've had some vulnerabilities with trust. So you go and say, no, it's okay, make friends, enjoy their company. And yeah, you can trust them to some degree, but you wouldn't necessarily trust them 100% if you don't know them very well. And you might say to yourself, well, things are fine. I'm not going to give too much of, I'm not going to trust them 100% with everything, because that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to enjoy the company. I'm going to see how the relationship goes over time. And if their actions and their words match, then that's a sign that that's an authentic person, and I can, feel a bit safer with that person. Whereas I know from my past experience that where the words and the actions don't match, that's an untrustworthy person. So you can form decisions about how you relate to other people, and you can reassure yourself about that because of the work you've done. So another example is when, this is very practical, so you might carry a bottle of water to work with you, or and a lot of people do, right? And it seems very straightforward, doesn't it? But if you set an intention, I'm going to take this bottle of water with me because I value looking after my physical needs. That's really important to me. It's a value. And I'm going to take this bottle of water because it's a way of me looking after me. That's a very strong, powerful intention, just with a bottle of water. And you can set those intentions for everything in your life. So you've broken that cycle of constantly reacting to what other people are saying or doing, and you are focused in your own beliefs and values of what's important for you. And healthy people respect that. They see it, and a narcissist will run a mile for anyone who's living an intentional life. And it's the beginning of a new phase of your life. It's massive. And if you can make that, if you can bridge this gap between being a victim, looking at what's happened to you, taking your power back with the exercise I've explained, and living intentionally, that is the whole map of recovery from narcissism. So I hope you find that helpful. I'll see you in the next video.